Ah, yes, welcome to Flobo Boyce on Netflix. You are joined here today to listen to us talk and extol and expound upon the virtues of vampires versus the Bronx. But, as always, I am not alone. I'm being joined by someone who said she'd rather be a unicorn than a vampire herself. Give it up for Emily Mae.
Hey everyone! Vampire versus unicorn. That's part two.
What's going on? I figure I get kind of festive. I have a red light on in the room for those of you in the audio version because I figure we're doing vampires. Why not?
Yeah, you have to. That was all, and you have to say it was all my idea.
Yeah, you're like, be evil. You're totally doing the most evil interpretation of yourself.
I am. I'm like, all right, we need red lights. See, I left my cape and coffin somewhere else. So
I can't believe you had a coffin and didn't show pictures on Instagram. You gotta glow up, sis.
I know. I'm sorry.
Well, we're actually doing this live here. It's January 23rd. If you're in the Los Angeles area, it has been dark, cold, and stormy all night. What a fitting idea for a movie like this one.
Perfect. It was perfect. I had my warm little drink and, listening to the rain fall and, lots of vampires.
What is the drink of choice when reading about people that will bite your neck and turn you into the undead?
Anything warm, like coffee, tea.
Yeah,
That's what vampires say. Anything warm.
Love it. So here's some basic facts about the film. Released 2020 on Netflix original, about a 1 hour and 26-minute runtime. One of the shorter films we have checked out here on the show. And it is produced by Broadway Video, which is fitting to me. If those of you who don't know, Broadway Video is a production company that's owned by Lorne Michaels. It produces Saturday Night Live. And this does feel like a Saturday Night Live sketch in parts. And the rating breakdown is a 5.6 on IMDb, but an 89% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. So,
what's your rating platform of choice? Do you go Rotten Tomatoes or IMDb, or do you combine?
It's hard now because there's so many streaming only stuff. I usually look at Dana Stevens. She was like the one critic, or Chris Bumbray. Dana Stevens at the Slate and Chris Bumbray at Joe Blow were like the two critics that are very similar to what I was like. But when it comes to movies now, I do both because Rotten Tomatoes tends to be the standard in our industry. I would be remiss if I did not mention them. But at the same time, IMDb is kind of more objective because it's kind of more like out of the way. So I like to look at both of those.
Cool.
But thoughts about the movie overall, Emily Mae?
I mean, it was kind of.
Talk to me.
It was super slow for me. It felt like I wanted more vampires right away, right? It was like a slow build. I don't know how you feel about your vampire films or your slight horror film, right? Genre, but I like it to be gory and crazy right off the bat, right?
Do you prefer a gore over suspense or a mixture of both? What's your flavor?
I think they have to be paired together in the right way to make it work. You don't want gore to just have gore.
Yeah.
But it has to fit within the story of the build. So I wanted vampires right away. I was like, oh, all right. It just felt like they fit it in. I get there's some symbolism here too. We'll get into that.
Symbolism?
Yeah, I think there's some symbolism, right?
It's kind of on the nose, but you dig deep enough. It's actually a story.
I know. It's right there. It's right there.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Actually, before I say that, I want to say that even though it's an hour and 26 minutes long, there are parts of it that it is kind of stretched out. It's a very, very thin premise. It does seem like a sketch premise that got built out to an entire film, but I do think it has some heart. But you can't deny the allegory of vampires coming into the Bronx when you have the bastion of gentrification. Now, we live in Los Angeles. We've seen both sides of gentrification. It's not necessarily a good thing or not necessarily a bad thing, but we can see how that sort of thing impacts communities. Let's talk more about the symbolism, wink, wink, of vampires versus the Bronx. Did it work for you?
I can't wink.
Oh, yeah. Did it work for you? Was it too heavy-handed? I always wonder about things like that. About when it comes to your audience, you as an audience member watching.
Yeah,
things like this.
yeah. I mean, I think when we're looking at it, I knew that storyline was going to be the vehicle in which this was told, and that vampires were Flobo, you look a little evil there.
Just a little.
You look like a little vampire master over there.
Continue, Emily Mae, the unicorn of Los Angeles.
Oh my god, I need t-shirts. Someone make me a graphic. So like I felt like, yes, that's the vehicle in which they're discussing like, you know, the socioeconomic experience right now. Like that's how the vehicle in which they're doing it in a fun way with vampires and kind of like the mythology and history of them, right? So like I feel like it works. I feel like that it does it in a fun way where it's not, moments were kind of heavy-handed, but I think overall I think it worked pretty well.
Yeah, it seems to be like a giant mix of things. It was an unapologetic B movie. Like it tells you exactly what the movie's about.
Yeah, exactly. You know what it is going in. Like, yeah. and it's like they're meeting you where you are. Like going in.
Right. It kind of reminds me of like the old Grindhouse films or even the Tarantino stuff. What's going on, Johan Pena? Wheel 5 Stud watching us live on Twitch.
Hey!
If you're on Twitch, hit me a follow right now. And I also said that some of the imagery was like Spike Lee. It was almost like someone saw a Spike Lee movie, then saw Grindhouse, and decided to make that like a thing. Which is fine.
Yeah, and like all of these movies, like when you're doing a vampire movie, you always look back at all of the other TV shows or movies or for inspiration. Like you're never going to have a truly original kind of vampire horror movie because again, it's like a cult kind of culture where you have these collection of movies that represent that vampire culture. So like we were joking on Twitter about Twilight. And like Twilight is a whole different genre of vampire stories, right? Yeah. People say it's more love story, right?
Some people. I do.
Some people, you do. I know you're a huge Bella fan.
Team Bella.
Team Bella all the way.
What?
So like when you're looking back at like the Dracula stories and like when you're looking at the history of like what vampires are known to be, you know, against and like how long they live and like all that stuff, you have to kind of know that going in, right? But then they always bring it up in these movies and they make these new rules, right? Yeah. So they like take the history of other movies and kind of merge them into this and put their new modern spin on it.
Yeah, I think like with a lot of these creatures and our quest for reboots, there has to be an explanation of the stakes because, again, Blade was different than Twilight, which was different than Near Dark, which was different than a lot of these movies, and it always feels like, wait, which one's going on? Like silver bullets weren't an issue in this movie, but I thought that'd be a way of killing them too. But like you're right, there is like a need to bring something that's fresh and original. As somebody from New York City growing up, I did appreciate a lot of the cultural stuff. I'm not Latino, not saying that I am, but it was kind of cool to see like the interplay between Puerto Rican Spanish, Dominican Spanish, some of the small streets. I enjoyed that, but I will admit that cultural part of the film occurs in giant chunks of the movie. And so I was very concerned to see how you saw it. If someone not from New York, would it still hold up to someone watching it from the outside, or was kind of like me on this nostalgia bus being like, this is so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was like pockets of those moments.
Yeah.
I feel like it worked for what they wanted, like what they created, but I feel like it would have been more effective if they had it throughout. Like not just in pockets where they're like, oh, we should put this in here. Like that's how I felt like it kind of felt at times. Yeah. So I think it would have been cooler if they and more effective, I feel, if they like kind of brought it full circle a little bit.
Yeah. Any performances stick out for you? Any kind of like performances from actors, the children actor, the adult actors, anyone have characters that were like, that's cool?
Yeah, I mean, I think is what's the main kid's name that like kind
Miguel?
of Miguel. Yeah, Miguel. I liked him from the beginning. I think he like spearheaded everything, and I liked how he like brought the community together, even when people thought he was going crazy, right? You know, I feel like he was kind of the glue that held like the kids together and their kids, but you know.
That is such a trope though. It's like, you gotta believe me, here's my proof.
Yeah.
Here's my proof. You know?
Yeah.
I did like the fact of interplaying of the three characters, and it was like not so much not just who they are, but what they represented. So you got Miguel, who was basically ingrained in his community. They called him Little Mayor, which is pretty cool. You got Bobby, who was in the community, but is possibly going to a wrong crowd, rolling with Hennessy or Henny, as they call him. And you have that one friend that's always out of town, and Luis Acosta, who played Luis. What I liked about this kind of interplay is that it did take a long time for the kids to get on board with what was going on, but once they were on board, they kind of got the ball rolling. Again, this is an hour and 25-minute movie, but it would have been a whole different drag if that was pulled out more, being like, I don't know if this is true, you're crazy. If they went to the library, read books or what have you.
Like it took an hour, like 45, 50 minutes for them to actually like come on board and realize, oh wow, this is happening, this is an issue in our city.
By the way, there's actually vampires from I have it down here, the Marnau guys, which is the name of the real estate company, and I looked it up, and I was like, that looks way too on the nose for something. The Marnau was actually named after F.W. Marnau, who directed Nosferatu, which was one of the old school German expressionism, vampire type deals.
Yeah.
I don't know. Are you a horror connoisseur? Are you are you a fan of like vampire, the subgenre, or is it kind of like you appreciate horror like in totality?
So I appreciate it in its totality. I'm not saying that like I go and like have to see every vampire movie that ever comes out. Like Anne Rice, Interview with the Vampire, always good and like changed, I think, the movie culture of how vampires are represented, and so that's like one of my favorites. Again, the original Dracula is always a good one, and I think so. Like, I wouldn't say like, oh, I got to watch every movie, but like I can respect the art form and what they do.
The high art. So this one is technically a horror comedy, and I know horror comedy is a hard genre to clip, but one of the ones that I saw in some time was like that I think is pretty much parallel to this is Shaun of the Dead. You have the zombie.
I was just gonna say it's a very Shaun of the Dead.
So walk me through this. Were you a fan of that trilogy, the Cornetto trilogy?
Oh, I totally was. Yeah.
Did you have a favorite one of the three, or just kind of
probably the Shaun of the Dead? Yeah.
Yeah. So I was more of a Hot Fuzz guy.
Okay.
Because a lot of it was the same thing, where it was like you got this introduction of a character you got from the top. There was these murders going on. No one believed.
Mysteries. You set up the mystery right off the front, right off the bat. Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, man, I think this is the best horror comedy like trilogy that, in my opinion. So the question I have for you is, and I know humor is subjective, because if you're listening to the show right now, you want to hear the Patreon-only version of the show, I'll cover the comedy special. So patreon.com/Flobo Boyce. Have me do the reviews of comedy specials as a comedian on Flobo on Netflix. But your opinion, did the humor work for you in this movie or not?
So I didn't think it was that funny. Like it didn't like, I think there was moments where like I chuckled, but it wasn't at the level of like Shaun of the Dead where I was like, oh, like where I was bursting out laughing. Right. So I think it was more subtle comedy than it was, and I have issues with like laughing out loud. So this is coming from me.
Wait, what issues are these?
No, like Brandon makes fun of me because sometimes I'm watching a movie or like a TV show and I think it's funny, but I don't laugh out loud.
Okay.
Is that a thing?
No, I think now more than ever we use our text messages and stuff to talk about how we're elevating that we see things and go, huh, that's funny.
Yeah, so like it's funny, like so then he worries that I'm not thinking it's funny, but I do find it funny. I'm just not like belly laughing.
Well, I want to say this as a guy who was formerly a significant other to somebody else. It does crush you when you pick the movie and it's supposed to be funny and your significant other is not laughing. It was like, oh man, I'm sorry. Like, you didn't like it? Yeah, like, please don't judge me, man. But maybe it's
all good. It's all good.
So this is why I like your opinion and your perspective, because again, someone from New York City, even though, and put in perspective, like I'm from like Brooklyn South, like I'm like from like the Belt Parkway on the other side, and I never even went to the Bronx as a kid because that's how big that town was. It was like, Mom, going to the Bronx for what?
Why are you going there?
Yeah, why? What?
Why?
But there are certain moments in there like that seem so authentically like New York to me that I found like I didn't. There's not many movies that come out now that make me laugh out loud, and this one did in certain parts. And actually, like the scene where like when Luis is like saying that Tony's mirror was dirty, and he's like, "Oh, you got new mirror money?" Like to me was like on brand for a bodega owner, because they would always complain. We would always complain about how grimy these shops were, and they're always like, "Yo, you going to help me out with this, homie?" Like. Or like when Miguel was like, "Open your eyes," and then the buddies were like, "Yo, that's vague as hell." Like to me, it just throws me back home, and I enjoyed that. But again, I'm like, do I like it because it's funny objectively or subjectively, or is it because that reminds me of like my personal upbringing? That's why I was just curious.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really like that's cool to hear your perspective on that.
I appreciate it.
Because like I didn't grow up in New York. I grew up in Southern California. It's very like
you
very
are
different.
LA original. Like you are like
I'm an LAOG. Yes.
What? Speaking of LA and us being on this digital platforms, thoughts about Glow TV? It appears a couple times in this film. You got the whole girl with the live stream giving you the Greek chorus. What's happening around the streets? Liked it? Didn't like it?
I mean, I liked it. I think it's a moment of the times, right? Like you have everyone on their phone, you have everyone like going on Twitch and live streaming right now, like we are. So I liked how it's just like it's a different generational kind of storytelling element, like so it kind of like added like a story within a media story within a story. So like you have the film that you're capturing, but you also have this other person within the film capturing what's happening. Right. So it's kind of like a double kind of thing happening, which I can appreciate.
So when it comes to back to comedy for real quick, we talk about like those multiple camera shows where they have the laugh track, and I like those because to me they're like the junk food of entertainment. But there's some people that say, "Hey man, don't tell me when to laugh, bro." It's true. I mean, but there's some people that say having a character tell me what's going on and give me exposition may be kind of lazy writing versus, oh, it worked for this environment. So, like, did it work for you on that level? Or was it kind of like, we don't really need her?
I mean, in any other movie, I feel like it wouldn't. I feel like it worked because it was a whole horror comedy. I feel like it worked because it's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to make you feel like you're a part of it. So I feel like it worked that way. But I don't necessarily like being told as an audience, this is what's happening. This is what's going on. This is what you need to pay attention to. I like more subtle representation of like maybe the production design has elements of different colors or different lighting, lighting design, things that are more subtle than like blatantly out there. Like this is what you need to point and pay attention to,
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Also want to give a shout out to Sherman Cox. Thanks for rolling through, homie. Yeah.
Hey.
So the question I always ask when I am watching a show on that Netflix platform is that who is this for? So you've watched it, you have your opinions of it. I'll ask you for your rating in just a minute. But like, if you had to recommend this film to someone, would you? One, and if you would, who would you do it exactly?
So I would probably recommend it to like some friends and stuff that I know are specifically into kind of the Shaun of the Dead genre and like maybe those types of movies. I don't think it's like for everyone, I think you definitely have to be into that, but
yeah. I'm into like having holy water bubble and stabbing vampires upside down. That's my jam.
Okay, first of all, that vampire stabbing with they're sleeping peacefully.
Okay, let's talk about this. You triggered?
I am.
Emily Mae, vampire advocate. Why is that bad? Why is it bad?
Because I was traumatized. How would you feel if you were hanging like a bat and all of a sudden a big wooden stake came and stabbed you and then you burned into like a giant ashes?
I'll be pretty upset if I wasn't dead.
You'd be very upset, right?
But I'm not rolling in the Bronx doing that. That's your fault. You don't come to the Bronx and take a nap in the middle of the Bronx.
That's true. Wait, so can you do it in like up in Manhattan? You can do that, just not in the Bronx.
Totally. I think Vampires versus the Upper East Side would be a short film.
Oh my god!
It'd be like, we're taking over.
They get attacked. They go around Lincoln Center.
Yeah, the check clears. Jump.
The Met. They're hanging at the Met.
There's your sequel.
Finding a dark theater somewhere.
I could be a familiar. Could I be a vampire?
Yeah. No, but like, can we talk about the CG, like of the ashes? Like, how'd you feel about that? Like the technical aspects of the film.
It was cheap as hell, but I'm a guy that likes Constantine with Keanu Reeves, so I can't get mad.
Well,
I thought that was fine.
well, then we should move on because
I wasn't expecting James Cameron's like What a Digital or ILM to roll through. I mean, it was dumb, but it was fun.
Oh man, did you feel like that moment happened too soon? That like, or did it like take too long to get to this big battle of neighborhood versus vampire?
You know what I think would happen is, this is why I kept mentioning the runtime, because it's an hour and 26 minutes, which means it should be breezy, but it does drag in parts, because I do feel there was this concerted effort to establish the threat and then have their big battle, but in the middle was to build up the network of friends as much as they can. Mm-hmm. And like, I don't believe for a second Henny and the goons would work with Frank and then have a shootout with other vampires. I feel the other vampires at least know what was going on. Yeah. I do think like the quick fight of being like, I don't like your daddy, let's open my daddy. Okay, we're over it now. Wouldn't have even be in the script if there wasn't a chance to do runtime. Like, not to toot my own horn, but toot toot. I wrote a screenplay in the sports genre. It was a sports genre.
Okay.
And it was 90 pages. It was a very short, about the size of this one. And I was running out of story. So I did very much what this movie did. Instead of having a girl doing a selfie, I did an ESPN show where we went to two characters and talked about what was happening in the movie to help pad the pages. So like,
and then were they vampires?
Yeah, dude, that's what it is, man. I guess you read it already.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is like the pacing is all over the place. That's my point. The pacing is all over the place. It's dumb, but it comes in at an hour and 26 minutes. Like, it's almost harmless. Because I don't know about you. When someone tells me this Wonder Woman is 2 hours and 25 minutes, I'm like, oh, hell no.
And people thought that was way too long. And I feel like this was like a perfect chicken nugget, right? You get like crispy on the outside. You got the perfect chicken nugget, right? You got a little dollop of ketchup. It was the perfect amount of time. I just feel like they could have like made those kind of tighten those choices in the middle to make it not feel like an hour and a half movie should not feel long. It should feel succinct and like, you know, it should feel like it's on point, you know, and going to the right place.
All right, Emily Mae, Judgment Day. There's a rating from 0 to 10. You can use a decimal system if you want. Vampires versus the Bronx. What is your rating?
I am going to give it a 6.5.
Wow, generous. Deciding based on your analysis.
I'm a generous person.
So you're split the difference between IMDb with 5.6. You're saying 6.5. I'm torn, man, and I'm glad that I was able to basically dump everything about my life because, again, as a fan of New York culture, seeing Brooklyn gentrify, it's like, yeah, get them, get those vampires. But at the same time, it's not necessarily a well-structured movie. So I'm with you. I'm going to say 6.0. I'm going to say 6 even. I think 6 means it's worth a look, worth a skim. For those of you who don't know about me on Netflix, when I'm not doing this show, I have a 20-minute test. If you don't hook me at 20 minutes, then I move on. I think this is a perfect film for that. Yeah,
no, I agree. I'm glad we're like we're on the same page.
Yeah. Even though I did like the fact that he had a Sam Sosa's bat just laying in the back of the store right there.
I mean, don't you? Don't you?
I do. That whole scene when Vivian comes in and he's figuring out she's a vampire, I think was one of the best shot scenes as far as suspense and all.
Yeah.
It's just too bad it's on an island, really. it's like nothing around it to be like, oh!
I know. It's like they had a really good idea and they like got that shot really done really well, and then everything else was kind of pieced together before and after.
Word. Emily Mae,
I'm not trying to be mean at all.
No, I want people to know this who are avid listeners on the podcast version of this. So Emily Mae, this is her third appearance in the show. And perhaps, unfortunately, it was my turn to pick the movie. So I totally understand. She's like, what is this? But I watched The Prom. So even Stevens.
Whatever. I'll get you back next time.
Whatever. Where can the world find you online if they want to send you all hate mail for ragging on this movie?
So mean. Well, you can send me lots of love letters or hate mail or just like nice pictures of your pets if you want. All over. I'm on all social platforms at Emily Mae Heller. Catch me. I have lots of stuff coming. Monday, I'm premiering a new show, which is which is called Pro Wrestling Pets, where I interview wrestlers and their pets. So we have some dogs, cats, bunnies, and some other animals coming your way. So follow me, and you'll see all that come out soon.
Pro Wrestling Pets is going to be YouTube or?
Yeah, it will be on YouTube. So.
Oh, great. Well, and this is Flobo Boyce. You can follow me at Flobo Boyce on Twitter and on Instagram, at Flobito on Instagram, and Flobito.com. I'll be back next time with more content. Flobo Star on Netflix, What's Up Flobo After Hours, all that jazz. And please support the homie if you can by buying a t-shirt at Flobito.threadless.com. And if you have a film you want us to go through, let me know in the comments below.